Hello, peace be upon you all, and welcome back to The Living Jesus. My name is Tiffany, and this is my special guest, my co-host for today. This is Kevin.
Peace be upon you, Tiffany.
Thank you very, very much for joining me today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. And today we're going to talk about a timely thing. We're going to talk about an article that was released just yesterday.
Yes.
And it's a very interesting article entitled AROPL and the Rise of New Age Anti-Cultism, the Anti-Cult Movement. If we could pull up the first slide, it shows you and introduces you to the article, and you can find it on Bitter Winter, which is an amazing publication, which talks about religious minorities and sort of human rights violations that occur towards religious minorities. It's
everywhere in the world, right?
Yeah, all over the world, and many different religions are written about on this website.
Yeah, and so I mean, as you can read in the screen, right? It says, the opposition to cults has so far consisted of two main sides, religious and secular. A third side is emerging, targeting the Ahmadi religion of peace and light.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, it's a cool article because it actually brings up something that I was sort of unaware of, which is there are two different, or there have been historically two different movements that opposed what is deemed cults. Or new religious movements, that have been unfairly termed cults.
Yes.
And there are both secular groups that oppose these new religious movements, and there's also religious groups that oppose these new religious movements.
Exactly. And we have, actually, we were here discussing before, right, another article where it talks about specifically this idea that the word cult is basically a framework which people like use to tag religious movements that they don't like, pretty much, right? And this is what we see again in this article, right? Like the description of the anti-cult movement or counter-cult movement that is in the sociology of religion. They have been seeing this phenomenon of people who oppose these new religious movements or small minority religious movements, labeling them as cults, and what are the motivations behind these groups of people, and it's interesting how actually there is these two groups would often be at odds, right, with each other.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most fascinating revelation from the article, and that is that I think they might actually be unaware of the fact that they're working against one another, right? Because,
yes.
I mean, as we'll see, we're going to actually read out a lot of the article, and we're going to kind of discuss in between the points that it brings up.
Right.
The next slide has biographical information about the author of this article. Her name is Rosita Šorytė, and she works with the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, or the OSCE, and she also works with the publication Bitter Winter. And she's very qualified, and she's done a lot of work with new religious movements and human rights abuses towards new religious movements. So we can pull up the next slide, and we can get started with the article. So the article starts off by talking about scholars of new religious movements have studied the anti-cult movement for decades. Researchers describe it as comprising two distinct subgroups, as you mentioned. Massimo Introvin referred to the first group of these in a well-known 1993 article as the counter-cult movement, which is driven by religious groups that feel threatened by the competition posed by new arrivals in the competitive religious market. These groups often label the new movements as illegitimate, heretical, and even demonic.
Yes. So basically, this is religious people, right? Like, for example, mainstream versions of Christianity, of Judaism and Islam, and it's actually like mentioned, right, in the article, for example, in Russia, that they for example, may be held by the Orthodox Church, and in in Iran, for example, by the Ayatollah regime,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
And in Israel, they are backed up by basically they collaborate with the
Yes,
government
yeah.
of Israel,
Yeah,
right?
So even nations that are so allegedly secular,
Yes.
there's usually like an alliance between that government and a religious affiliation, and usually they team up, right, in order
Yes.
to sort of squash new religious movements.
Exactly, and as the article says, like it's because they are perceived as a threat, right? They want to have as many, adherents as they can, and new movements emerge. Some of them being, for example, very popular, or and attracting a lot of youth, a lot of people, and that, and so they perceive them as heretical,
Yes, yeah.
right? So
Or they paint them as heretical
Yes,
and
yes.
demonic and dangerous,
Yes.
and they make people fear them
Yeah.
in order to keep people away from them and to make people dislike the adherents of these religions.
and stay in the religion that they actually are.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
And I mean,
Yeah.
I was immediately struck by the history of Christianity. Seeing as this is a Christian program and most of our viewers are Christian,
Yes.
and I'm very aware that this is exactly the story of early Christianity.
Definitely.
Right? Early Christianity started out as a huge threat to the society that it was born into, right?
Yes.
And
the religious establishment.
both the religious establishment and the political authorities,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So at the time where Jesus, he came forward, was occupied by Rome and the Roman Empire. And the Roman Empire did not like Christianity, and they wanted to squash it. And they kind of teamed up, right? The Pharisees and the religious authorities, they teamed up with the Roman authorities in order to frame Jesus for a crime. And this is, of course, how the events of the crucifixion unfolded.
Yes.
But we found that also this continued into the early centuries, up until the 4th century, when the Roman Empire sort of adopted Christianity. And they did that for a reason. They did that for a very political reason,
Yes.
because it was becoming too popular. It was becoming out of control. They were not able to keep people away from it anymore, so they decided to adopt it instead, to have some sort of control over it. But in the early centuries, there were many edicts talking about how it was a crime to be a Christian. And the next slide, if we can pull it up, we have Trajan's rescript to Pliny, the elder. And this is just stating what you had to do in order to prove that you weren't a Christian.
Yes.
So you observed proper procedure, my dear Pliny, in sifting the cases of those who had been denounced to you as Christians. If they are denounced and proved guilty, they are to be punished with this reservation, that whoever denies that he is a Christian and really proves it, that is, by worshipping our gods, even though he was under suspicion in the past, shall obtain pardon through repentance.
Okay.
So it was very much tied to religion, right?
Yes.
It was a crime to be a Christian, and in order to prove your innocence, you had to worship the gods that the Roman government approved of.
Exactly, which is like the ultimate like blasphemy in Christianity. So many people would rather not worship these gods that they saw as idols, so they were willing to even like be put under torture and things like this in order to keep their own religion safe within themselves. So the mere suspicion of being a Christian would grant you the to take you to court, and you would be probably like forced to.
So there was a mainstream established religion in the Roman Empire, and that was what was deemed okay. That was the mainstream, you know. And Christianity was seen as a heresy. It was seen as something undesirable, and it was painted as such, and it was considered to be a crime. So I feel like it's exactly the same thing that we see taking place in the world today with new religious movements and established religions. Nothing has really changed. And also the governments, have adopted these established religions as safe, and they deem them to be okay, and they consider the new religious movements to be like a threat to the social order, and they don't like them.
So I mean, and it's interesting how now, when after Christianity is established, and after I don't know. I was thinking that, for example, there is a verse in the Bible, a commandment in the Torah that says you were strangers in the land of Egypt, so you should treat strangers as basically,
yes,
right? So what about you were a cult in Rome, so you should treat new religious movements as you wish to be treated?
I think absolutely. For Christians, considering the history of their religion, it would be a big mistake to mistreat people who profess a new religion, because yes, this was once the story of their religion.
Yes,
this
exactly.
was
for 400 years, just like the Jews were slaves for 400 years.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. It's interesting how after these 400 years, what happens is actually that Christianity starts persecuting cults, right? Heresies.
Yeah. So that's something that's pointed out in the article. I mean, there are Christian anti-cult movements that work with certain governments in certain countries in order to sort of squash new religious movements. Yeah. I included a slide also from the interview with Holly Folk, Professor Holly Folk, because I found it really interesting and relevant to this article. And she spoke a lot about religious minorities, new religious movements, and she's the one who actually brought up this idea of cult as a frame. And she said, in terms of religious minority, where when we think about countries and societies where there's a dominant tradition, unfortunately, in many cases, the dominant tradition looks at other religions and says, you're a threat, you're disruptive, we need to do something about this. And so if you are a minority, it is very easy to find yourself facing persecution. And so in that sense, being a new religious movement very often invites state surveillance, government persecution, hostility from the rest of the people, and hopefully over time that also maybe can be erased as a process of routinization. So she's describing what happens like historically. Yeah. So over time, you're not so new anymore, right? New religious movements become deemed just religions. They become established religions. But in the early days, religions such as Christianity, they often face persecution, they face government surveillance and hostility, and they're sort of looked down on by the religious majority.
Exactly. So I mean, I think we can continue with the next slide, please. So we can check the article that was recently published, and it says, in some countries, religious counter-cultists can mobilize the government against the groups they label as cults. In Iran, the anti-cult movement is intertwined with the theocratic government. Countries like Pakistan and Malaysia have official Islamic councils that identify which groups they consider heretical cults, and these designations often lead to governmental repression. In Israel, as documented by Willy Fautré, Jewish ultra-Orthodox anti-cultism can influence governments that rely on support from religious parties.
Yeah, interesting.
Yes.
I think that it's something that we've witnessed, right? And certainly our faith has faced this in countries, even some of the countries that were mentioned here, like in Malaysia, the Sharia Council, it came together and ruled that actually our religion is heretical, and the goal of the wise, the gospel of the riser of the family of Muhammad, is banned in the entire country of Malaysia, and it's considered to be, a crime to read it. So we face this exact thing. Governments that have very strong ties to religion, or theocratic governments, governments where there's like an official state religion, they often they do this. They come together and they rule that a new religious movement is considered to be heretical, and they make it illegal to practice this such faith in that country. And
the article is very clear why, right? Because in these governments, of course, political parties are political parties that are religious political parties, right? Like, for example, in Malaysia, one day I was talking with the Malaysian brothers and sisters, and they were telling me how, for example, in Malaysia, if you want to be like a congressperson, you have to be from a specific Sunni Muslim denomination, let's say, right? So basically, what happens? Every politician is from one of these adherent of one of to these school of thought of Sunni Islam, and they are the ones with political power in the country. So of course they will use their political power to repress and suppress other movements that challenge, call to question, or basically oppose the interpretations of religion that they are trying to officially promote.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we see an example in Iran as well. I mean, Iran is a country that claims to follow the Ahl Bayt, right? The successors of Prophet Muhammad. And yet they have deemed our faith to be heretical, even though we are following the will of Prophet Muhammad, which is in a book that they, follow. But their religious councils have come together and have declared that, our belief is heretical and something dangerous. And I mean, it's no question why, right? Because it poses a direct threat to the authority. So it's considered to be very problematic in a country like that.
Exactly, because we have an interpretation of their specific sect of Islam that they are following that validates many of their understandings, but at the same time, deeply challenges specifically the leadership structure of the country, right? So of course, if you have political power and a religion, you can use the religion to protect your political power, right?
And I mean, we saw that marriage of religion and politics in what happened with Catholicism and the Roman Catholic Church. We saw, right, the sort of merging of the religion and the state in order to consolidate, power and the belief in God and, unify all of the Roman citizens under one faith.
One version of Christianity that could serve the interests of the state, and a state that would serve the interests of that version of Christianity.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So we saw the exact same thing happen in the religion of Christianity in the history.
Yes.
Okay, I guess we can continue with the next slide. The next slide says, although Russia is theoretically a secular state, the Putin regime seeks the support of the Russian Orthodox Church, which plays a significant role in establishing a unified consensus. In return for this support, the regime takes action against groups like the Jehovah's Witnesses, which the Russian Orthodox Church condemns as sheep stealers and cults. In South Korea, the anti-cult movement is primarily organized by Protestant fundamentalists. Despite not representing the majority of the population, they can exert considerable influence over political parties, elections, and government actions by voting together as a bloc. And on the side, you can see an event organized in Frankfurt by the World Association Against Heresy, which is a Protestant fundamentalist South Korean anti-cult association that operates with China. So it's something. It's very much like an active movement.
It's interesting, right? Because what was happening in Russia, for example, according to the article, is that basically it is a secular state, but the Putin regime is using basically or collaborating with the Orthodox Church because of the power of the Orthodox Church being so widespread in Russia to basically tell the people, no, unify them, make them get into a consensus. It comes from God, it comes from the church, right? So what happens with groups like the Jehovah's Witnesses, that they say, no, we don't pledge allegiance to the flag, we don't salute the flag, we don't sing the national anthem.
That makes them sort of a threat to the state.
Exactly. Power, it's like, and they're telling the people, no, we are waiting for the Messiah to come back, for Jesus to come back, so he will establish the nation of God on earth, right? So it's like even though the Jehovah's Witnesses also believe in following the law and obeying the laws of the country that they live in, this act of not believing in the idea of a state outside of the state of Jesus Christ, of course, makes it is obvious why the spread of an ideology or a religion with these ideas would be something that would undermine the ability of the Russian Orthodox Church to exert so much power in the Russian government.
You don't find many branches of Christianity sort of challenging the idea of nationalism.
Exactly.
You actually find that that many Christians, they quote like Paul in Romans,
Yes.
who basically states that all authorities are there because God has placed them there, so you shouldn't rebel against the government authorities, to sort of argue that there's no problem and there's no contradiction
Yes.
in being ruled by worldly authorities and being ruled by the religion of Jesus, because they can actually coexist. But yeah, Jehovah's Witnesses, they challenge these ideas of nationalism. They don't believe in being drafted by the military, right, for example. They don't believe in pledging allegiance to the flag because it goes against the ideology, right, of pledging your allegiance to God alone. So yeah, it is interesting. So for that reason, the Jehovah's Witnesses in particular are one denomination of Christianity that are very
targeted, all around the world.
Yeah, actually in many different countries.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, this is an interesting example that was brought forward in the article. I guess we can continue with the next slide. The second subgroup of the anti-cult movement is secular. It emerged from left-wing activists and intellectuals concerned about the rise of conservative religion, and from parents of students who, in the late 20th century, decided to leave college to become full-time missionaries, monks, or nuns for new religious movements. These parents, who were often non-religious, were less concerned about the theological orthodoxy of these new movements. Their prime concern was to get their children back, and they listened intently to psychologists who claimed that their children had been brainwashed. So this is the second of what has been historically the two branches of the anti-cult movement. The people who they weren't religious at all, they don't
care about religion, right?
So they're not trying to like save their children
from spiritually, right? They're just trying to save them from the fact that they decided to take a specific route in life that they didn't like, basically, right? So it is interesting because, of course, in the late 20th century, we have like the hippie movement and all this new age religious movement that spread, here and there everywhere. And then of course, like there's people and of course you have all the for example Mormonism, all these people who join the ranks of Mormon of the Church of Latter-day Saints, and they go and preach their gospel everywhere in the world, and they dedicate their lives to this mission, right? So there's people who are concerned, their parents are concerned, we don't want our children to go there. We want them to. They dropped off college to go to religion. So
the religion is more like the societal norm, right? Like their religion isn't like a theology, but it's more just like sticking to the status quo and going to college and getting a good job. Like they don't want them to deviate from that.
Exactly.
And they were disturbed from the fact that they did choose a different path in life, and they just wanted to get them back. And this is where you see that like cult deprogramming and things like this coming in.
Exactly. Yeah, and psychological terms like brainwash and all this terminology that of course comes not from spiritual. You're not demonically possessed now, you are brainwashed.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So can we continue with the next slide, please? Some of the fathers of the anti-cult movements, particularly in secular France, admitted they were against all religions and used cults as a starting point for a broader anti-religious campaign. Roger Icor, the founder of the French anti-cult organization CCMM, stated there isn't between a cult and a religion a difference of nature, or rather of principle. There is only a difference of degree and dimensions. If it were up to us, we would put an end to all this nonsense, that of cults, but also that of large religions. He also referenced Muhammad, Christ, and Moses as predecessors of today's cult leaders. Right?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because, as we said before, there's this sort of alliance between these two branches of the anti-cult movement, the religious and the secular. But I think statements like this, they make it very clear that the secular branch of the anti-cult movement is actually the enemy of the religious branch of the anti-cult movement, because they're basically saying we're starting with the new religious movements. In fact, they're like smaller fish, right? But really, ultimately, the goal is to do away with religion altogether. We see it as something that's bad for society. We see that, Jesus and Muhammad and Moses, these are really cult leaders of the past. And what they gave to society is actually damaging. And so really ultimately it seems like they might shake hands and be united on this front up until they achieve what they want, which is to expel new religious movements, and then ultimately they will come for the rights of the established religion.
There will have to be like a final clash of the anti-cult people, right?
And it's the point that was mentioned in the interview, which you can find on our YouTube channels with Holly Folk. You know, she basically she outlined that this is sort of a slippery slope, right? Because once you start coming for the right to religious freedom and belief, it becomes something that, like, where do you draw the line? How do you decide what is an okay religion to believe in, and what's legal and what's allowed and what's not?
It is basically like the censorship of the freedom of thought, basically, right? Because there's movements that are not necessarily religious that believe in things that religious movements believe in. Like, for example, I don't know, like, let's say just homeopathy, right? There's some people who believe that homeopathy really actually works, and there's some people who believe that homeopathy is like a dangerous pseudoscience, right? So basically what is going to happen if they succeed in going against specific beliefs, right? Who is the one who is going to tell us what is the line between normal and magical thought? Who is the authority that will rule on that?
Then it becomes like a very tricky landscape,
absolutely,
right? When it comes to your rights, to your beliefs and your private thoughts. And
I mean, I can imagine, like, for example, people who are obsessed with anime or people who are obsessed with comic books, like, are they going to also be labeled as some sort of religious fanatics, but of a different type of fantasy or delusion?
I mean, stuff like that can be deemed cult, right? Like,
absolutely,
that can be applied
we
to
talked about the Swifties the other day, and cult films and all this stuff. Like, who is the one whom we as a society are able to trust to give us a specific guideline or what constitutes a false belief that needs to be persecuted? If we allow ourselves to persecute other people just for their belief in something that we deem false, then who sets the standard of truth in the world?
We talked also sociologically about what sociology deems to be the difference between, like, cults, new religious movements, and, like, dangerous cults. And the interesting thing is, if a dangerous cult is something that's detrimental to society, that has caused damage, that has caused harm to human life, I mean, the same term could have been applied to what is now considered to be established religions.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
I have a slide, we can just pull it up. It has some facts about the Crusades and what had happened at the hands of the Catholic Church. Now, the Catholic Church is considered to be, a bona fide religious establishment. There's no controversy.
They have representation in the United Nations.
They have their own, city-state, which is the Vatican, and it's not a controversial thing at all in our world. They're not considered to be a dangerous cult.
Exactly.
But if you look into their history, they were responsible for many mass, deaths of certain groups of people.
Very huge wars.
Yeah, huge wars. And I mean, we don't have to go into great detail, but, the information is up on the slides. And, there were tens of thousands of people killed who, people that were targeted actually for their religious beliefs by the Roman Catholic Church. Not only their religious beliefs, but also, ethno-religions like the Jews, and the Cathars, for example. They were
who were Christians.
They were Christians, but they just followed a different denomination of Christianity, and they were systematically massacred by the Catholic Church. So it becomes like a very gray area. Like, how do you classify something, as a danger or not? So these terms of classification become a bit tricky.
Exactly, and also, like, even in secular countries, if we think about wars and that, like, secular countries are also responsible of that. So are we going to ban secular states as well?
That's absolutely true. I mean, I think everybody can agree that for non-religious reasons, wars have been waged and caused a lot of damage in society and caused a lot of human lives to be lost. And,
yes. I mean, I wrote recently an article for the magazine where I talk about miracles, and I go into detail about how even secular countries believe in miracles. And my country specifically, the flag of my country, there is a drawing of an eagle eating a snake, and this is a miracle. This is the remembrance of a miracle story. So what, should we erase Mexico also from the list of? Is this also a dangerous belief that we need to persecute and because it's nonsensical? Like, really, the line is not there.
Yeah.
The line doesn't exist.
So then it becomes like the brutal reality. It becomes this label is really just thrust upon groups that people don't like.
It's artificial. Yeah. It doesn't mean anything. It just means that there is somebody with power and authority who doesn't like another group of people.
Yeah.
And that's extremely concerning.
Yeah, it is concerning because I think most people don't think about all of these things and sort of put this whole picture together and realize that things are being unfairly labeled as cults, and they're being unfairly discriminated against and detracted from, and people are being persecuted in the name of like the betterment of society when really it's just a false idea.
Yes.
I think we can pull up the next slide, which has some of the article. This slide has a picture of the Crusades to sort of illustrate the fact that a war was waged in the name of Christianity. Yes, so the article continues. In a book published a few days ago, one of the international anti-cult movement's leading ideologists, Canadian sociologist Stephen Kent, argues that together with the cult leaders, figures such as the biblical prophet Ezekiel, Paul the Apostle, and Muhammad were all either schizophrenic or epileptic. More broadly, Kent insists that there is a clinical reason to assume that people who believe that they are having extraterrestrial contact may be demonstrating a symptom of schizophrenia. As for people who maintain that non-material spirits and forces do exist and offer prayers for divine intercession, the fact that they harbor magical beliefs indicates that they may suffer from mental disorders. A good number of religions, including the largest ones, were founded by mentally disordered minds, he concludes. I mean, these are very bold statements. Very bold statements. And these are not small names in the sociological field, right?
Yeah, and I don't think it's a fair assessment of things, and I don't think that he can scientifically back up what he's saying. Yeah,
there's no evidence for what he's saying. It's basically just a slander. But I think that it illustrates to people who believe in God and believe in religion how dangerous this idea is of regulating what you're allowed to believe in. Exactly, because this is the people who are behind a lot of these ideas. These are the people who are funding and dedicating their lives to propagating or the idea that we should persecute these kinds of behavior in or beliefs in human society, and I don't think most of the human population who believe in a specific religion would agree with that assessment of things. And also it is kind of weird to considering all the knowledge that there is in these religions and the fact that Muhammad and Ezekiel and Krishna and Buddha were just trying to teach people how to behave good. Yes.
Right? So, so we delete their teachings and we delete their guidance because they are epileptic or schizophrenic. So who is the one who is supposed to give us guidance on how to be a proper human being? I would like to know.
Like, ultimately, you will serve somebody, right, in the world. Like, you will take somebody as your leader, your guide. And a lot of people, they take political institutions, for example. They believe that the elected leaders are the best to guide society. But ultimately it is impossible to sort of escape the idea of leadership. It's something that we all as a society, we agree that we have to have. So when you erase the idea of prophets and messengers being truthful, then what are you left with? It's sort of a scary thing.
Who is your guide? Who is your moral compass? I would like to know. I mean, is it the state? Is it because most of the states in the world, like, by allowing religious institutions to exist in their countries, they are, delegating the task of moral guidance to these institutions, right? So they are kind of declaring that they are not moral guides to the people. So most of the secular countries, okay, we can say, no, they are not our guides on how to be a proper human being. Okay, so who is the one, like a state
a lot
like...
of countries, they like to hold this in their own hands, right? They like to maintain this power in their own hands. One example of that is China. China is a country that typically has not allowed a lot of religious expression. Yeah. And also, if we can bring up the next slide, the article states that China is home to the largest anti-cult organization in the world.
No wonder.
The China Anti-Zhizhao organization, which is promoted and controlled by the Chinese Communist Party through the United Front, most of its leaders are strong advocates of scientific atheism and Marxist dialectical materialism, and they maintain a hostile stance towards all religions. The sectarian counter-cult movement and the secular anti-cult movement are distinct, but interconnected. Their ideologies differ, and there is always a risk that the secular anti-cultists may target the religious organizations of counter-cultists. Nevertheless, operating under the principle that the enemy of my enemy is my friend, these groups have found ways to collaborate.
Yeah. So it is as they say, right? It is not that...
Right, the enemy of your enemy is your friend.
Yes, it is not that most of the people, connecting it to something that they said, that the article says before, it is not that most of the people actually like feel threatened or compelled to act against new religious movements. But it is the fact that the people who actually want to dedicate their lives to this, even though they may be at odds many times, because both of them are ultimately trying to destroy the other, because even the religious counter-cultists, they will at some point deem atheism as a dangerous thought,
absolutely,
right?
Because people who belong to the religious mainstream, many of those people, they are of the opinion that there needs to be more religion in governmental institutions.
Yes, and they are concerned about the advancement of atheism in the world. Yes, right. Yeah. So both of them are considering each other an enemy, but they are allying themselves and going to political institutions, having political power in order to push their agendas. Yeah. As long as they it's as if they are a united front right now.
Yeah, until but eventually they're going to have to split
absolutely.
Up, right? Because ultimately,
and it has happened, as the article notes, right? Yeah. Can we go to the next slide? For example, in Japan and South Korea, we have witnessed a troubling alliance between fundamentalists and theoretically anti-communist Christian pastors, who also act as deprogrammers, left-wing activists and lawyers, and even Chinese intelligence services, as established by court rulings. Similarly, in Israel, ultra-Orthodox Jews readily cooperate with atheists and anti-religious organizations to denounce cults and advocate for laws against them. Right? So they are collaborating. Can we go to the next slide, please? FECRIS, the umbrella organization funded by French taxpayers that coordinates, because they are somewhere up there in the political sphere, that coordinates anti-cult movements across Europe and beyond, includes both deeply secular movements, such as the one founded by ICOR, and until 2023, when it was forced to exclude it due to the Ukrainian war, the anti-cult agency of the Russian Orthodox Church, whose leaders are employees of the Moscow Patriarchate. Furthermore, books written by Western secular anti-cultists are translated into Farsi and used by the Ayatollah regime in Iran against cults. Okay. Right? Yeah. So there's
like a big collaboration going on. Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting because, like, what do these forces have in common with one another? I mean, they actually all...
The hatred for people who organize themselves in your religion. Yeah. That's what unites them, hatred, right? And we see like how the Russian Orthodox Church is forced to leave one of these organizations that coordinates the efforts of all these people who hate cults. Why? Because of their support of the Ukrainian war, right? Because now one of the people who are united in this coalition, now they are doing something that the others deem, inappropriate, right? Yeah. So they they face themselves, and they disagree with each other deeply.
Yeah.
And
so, I mean, at the end of the day, it's all political.
It is, yeah. It is, and it's the forces of darkness that cannot coexist together. I'm sorry to have to say it in this way, but if you were all good people, why couldn't you come to an agreement and be united in your effort against evil? Yeah. Why is it the case, right? It is. It seems more likely that you are just,
They're honoring their political alliances, it's not just about right and wrong. It's not about morality. It's not about good and evil. It's actually about what suits them, as a political institution. And I mean, it's not like an altruistic deed that they're doing.
No.
Yeah. So people are sort of being fooled.
Because if they cared about, it is not even loyalty to their idea, They're not even being loyal to their idea, because if they were loyal to their idea, then they could not ally themselves with people that they need to ban later on.
Yeah. It's almost as though they're like, I'll get rid of this problem now, and then I will save this problem for later, because it's serving me right now.
Exactly.
But they can't trust one another, because they've already proven that this is not like a loyal alliance that they have formed.
Didn't they know that the Russian Orthodox Church was supporting the Russian government? Yeah. Of course they knew.
Yeah.
Of course they knew, but they still allied themselves with them, even though they deep inside didn't like them at all, right? Just for what? To squash people who are already weak.
Yeah.
Right? Because new religious movements, by definition,
they're a minority.
Yes,
right?
and they don't have the resources that the governments and these big religions have.
Yeah, so they want to eliminate as many competitors as possible.
They want to bully people who are already weak, and that's.
I mean, it's a problem, and if they're successful in doing so, then ultimately they're going to end up coming for the bigger players in the field of religion.
What's going to happen at the end? Like, they're united by hatred, and they hate each other already.
Yeah, it's a
are these situation. Are these the people whom we should trust in order to tell us what is a dangerous belief?
No, I mean, how can you? They've already proven that they're not telling you the truth, right?
Yes.
They're not doing a good deed. They're not doing this out of the goodness of their hearts. Yes. They're not actually trying to sincerely guide you.
Yes.
They're just trying to make you believe what they want you to believe.
So again, we cannot trust even them, because they are able and willing to ally themselves with people they deem as profound, deep enemies.
Yeah.
In order to squash and bully other people.
So long as it serves their purpose.
Are they going to, let's get rid of all the cults, okay, let's get rid of all of it. Who is going to guide us? Them? I don't think I don't think that's something I want to follow.
No, I agree with you, and I think that it's sort of a stern warning for everybody, to pay attention to what's going on in this anti-cult or counter-cult movement. It's not something to be taken lightly.
Yeah, exactly.
If you believe in God, and you believe in the freedom to practice your religion, and you believe that to be an innate human right, which it is, it's absolutely a human right. You have a right to believe what you want to believe and to practice the faith that you choose to practice. And these people, they clearly do not believe in honoring that human right.
Exactly. Yeah. Or honoring each other.
If we can pull up our final slide. This is the conclusion of the article. The recent assault on the Ahmadi religion of peace and light has uncovered the presence of a relatively new third player that warrants attention. I will refer to it as New Age Anti-Cultism. This movement does not oppose so-called cults in the name of secular humanism or mainstream religion. Instead, it critiques cultic beliefs based on a confusing blend of astrology, energy theories, and popular esotericism. Although other instances exist, I will examine 2 examples pertinent to the Ahmadi religion of peace and light in this series. Additionally, I will explore whether New Age anti-cultism will be recognized as a legitimate component of the global anti-cult movement, and whether it will benefit from the efforts of its coordinating agencies. So this is a sort of interesting addition to the mix. There is a third anti-cult movement or branch of the anti-cult movement emerging.
Yes.
And that is a new age anti-cult movement. And that is the subject of the next articles in this series. As she mentioned, it's a series of articles. It's actually a series of 5 articles. And she's published already
3.
the 2nd and 3rd.
Yes.
So I highly recommend that you check them out.
You should go and check them out. They are amazing.
They're so interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, they're really fascinating. And the landscape of the anti-cult movement is getting extremely interesting. And I think that it would be really interesting for anybody who is religious or anybody who just believes in the human right to practice your faith.
Yes.
God bless you all and peace be upon you all. We'll see you again tomorrow.
God bless you.